Started. Okay. So we will call to order the May 24th, 2022 meeting of the Springville Planning Commission. And first thing to do would be to approve the agenda. Do we have any motions regarding the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We also had 2 meetings worth of minutes, which, is that first
Yeah.
many pages of the document. Are there any changes to the minutes that haven't already been sent to staff? Okay.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have 3 items on our consent agenda tonight. The consent agenda includes items that are administrative actions and no additional discussion is needed on these particular items. If these are approved, then the recommendations in the staff report become the action of the commission. We'll call for an objection or any comments on the consent agenda items, and if there is any opposition or comments, then we'll pull those particular items off the consent agenda. But otherwise, we just vote on all of them as a group. Do we have any discussion or motions for the consent agenda?
I just have a question on where the subdivision's going to be. There's an outbuilding behind that? Is it,
On Meadowbrook?
oh, sorry, on the Harnden subdivision,
Item number 1.
item 1, yeah. There's a group of, it looks like a group of outbuildings behind the single-family home. Are those gonna be in the flag lot, or are those in the
Yes.
single-family home? And so,
That's
Are-
the same owner, they'll own both lots.
will there be setbacks, or will those buildings be removed?
The buildings are fine, the existing buildings.
The existing buildings with the new flag lot?
Yep.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of an odd shaped piece of property there.
Flag lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just wasn't sure what those little buildings were, if they were gonna stay or if they were going to have to go.
Right.
I
Okay,
don't need to move it off
for discussion.
for discussion now.
Okay,
And I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
okay.
Is that the proper way to say it?
Mhm.
All right.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda items are approved. We have no administrative items tonight, so we'll move to our legislative session. We have 2 items on the legislative session, each requiring a public hearing. We'll have our staff report first, and then we'll move to the public hearing after that. First item is a consideration of an ordinance to recommend a development agreement with McCollins Properties LLC.
And Director Yost asked if we could continue this item,
Okay. To the next meeting or
just
particular date?
continue it
Indefinite.
indefinitely.
Okay.
I move to continue item 4 until the future time, or?
Yeah, so we don't have to have a public hearing if we don't have the report and we're continuing it, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All right. All in favor of continuing this item?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item is continued until staff is ready to bring
Thank
the
you.
item back. The second item is, well, let's see if I pronounce this right. Tuffley Company seeking to amend the official zone map from regional commercial zone to the highway commercial zone on 31 acres of property located in the area of 1700 North and 1750 West.
Okay. So before you is the property, it's approximately 31 acres, just north of the East Bay RV Park. On that first interchange, this item's kind of come before you before in the past, you'll be familiar with this request, so
Was it the same request in the past, or
It
I'm
is.
new?
It's similar. It's not exactly the same. I'm just gonna go, so these are Josh's slides, so let me kind of go through these for you. The RC zoning district is intended to provide a full range of,
Sorry, Laura, can I interrupt you real quick?
you bet.
So it's come here a couple of times in the past, it's changed a little bit tonight, and it's been denied?
So it's come to the planning commission with recommendations, and I don't know if Josh put that in the report, I apologize on that, but,
Don't recall that being as part of it. And it's been a different applicant each time.
it's been a different applicant.
Oh, I see.
I didn't remember reading a report on what happened at city
So is that 'cause
council.
So they never
It-
went
it's
to city
changed
council.
hands?
None of them did?
Uh-uh.
It's changed hands, is that why it's a different applicant each time?
Contracts, I'm sure.
Okay,
But
all right,
property's still owned by the same.
yeah.
So it never continued on to city council. So this is a new applicant, similar request, same property, so.
Okay.
Okay? And let's see, back to the RC zoning district is intended to provide a full range of commercial and service uses, a heightened intensity of uses, a major commercial destination, and these districts should abut arterial streets, be located near freeway access. This is hard to do a presentation when you don't know what's coming up next, sorry. I feel like I should explain a little more, I thought there should have been more background, but currently the property is zoned RC. It's regional commercial. The request is to rezone that to the HC highway commercial zone. And if you want to go through the uses, they're in your packet, but the majority of the uses are the same for those two zones. The primary difference is the light industry manufacturing processes that are allowed in the HC and not the RC.
And the outdoor storage.
And the outdoor storage, yes. Oh, here we go, the background.
Oh,
So there was a zone map amendment applications heard on October 27th, 2020, again on July 13th, 2021, and December 14th, 2021, all recommended denial by the Planning Commission. The current applicant understands the history and the staff's position. Current applicant requests to amend the zone map to regional commercial to highway commercial. In 2021, City Council adopted the zone map amendments, changed multiple zone map amendments where they changed most of the remaining undeveloped highway commercial zoning to the RC to kind of help preserve those uses until we can review our general plan and see which direction the city wanted to go. Analysis on the applicant's perspective. Proposal makes economic sense for applicant in near term. Impediments to RC development are clear. City perspective is no rush to develop. The key northern gateway to the city. Currently, no design controls are in place for the highway commercial zone. And proposed development is at best financially neutral for the city. The general plan, we have enough industrial for build out. City council, no more industrial flex office warehouse in freeway corridor is what's desired. So the recommendation from staff is to recommend denial of the requested zone map amendment. That was brief, so I will entertain any questions and answer them the best I can.
Laura, what is the P3 and C3 designations there? What are the
It's
three?
related to a footnote in the ordinance, which is not pulled up, but it's related to outdoor storage and warehouse facilities, I believe, when they're closer than 500 feet to an arterial street. It's a footnote. I can pull it up if you,
Does that mean they wouldn't allow the outdoor storage, or that would be allowed?
it's allowed with additional conditions that are listed in
Conditions,
that
okay,
footnote.
okay. That's sufficient, I think.
Okay. And, yeah, the applicants are here. Like to hear from them.
do you have any questions for staff before we invite the applicant up?
It's a good job.
Okay, would the applicant like to come forward and address the commission at this time?
So we'll have a couple of presentations. I'll just be representing the developer here. My name is Don Caruth. I'm the president of Tuffley Company. We are a third-generation family-owned development company that takes our pride in developing commercial parks similar to what we're proposing here. We've got about 150 of these around the country. We're in about 22 to 24 different states. And as part of that long-term history of 40 years, we've built some outstanding relationships with some tenants of ours that know us for building quality product, for sticking around and owning long-term. We're not buyers and sellers. We build, develop, and hold for the long haul. And given our relationships with them, they've asked us to follow them into different markets. We did a project up in West Valley City for them about 4 or 5 years ago. Went really well. And got a phone call saying, hey, would you consider going down to Springville? Have you ever heard of it? I said, yeah, I'd be thrilled to. I went to school just a little bit further north of there. So we've been looking in this market for a couple of years now, trying to find a suitable site that we believe we've found, and that's what we're here to propose on today. So for more of the scientific and technical side of this, we have with us Sunbelt Construction. That's our development partner that'll explain the background on this project. That's Bob Clausen here.
Not prepared with anything electronic, but I can hold back the paper.
My eyes will see it better.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
With the, I'm going to be the short-winded one of the three. Mostly, I'd just like to discuss basically answering some of Josh's questions. One of his questions was, does the proposed zone map amendment adhere to the general plan and further the orderly development of the city? Note, not taking any exception to Josh's report because he has a lot of statistical information about percentages of ownership. I'd just like to address what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to bring here for you all to pass judgment on. In terms of the map that was up earlier, this business park is commercial now and will be commercial for our use. So there's no change to the general plan required. We're doing it the right thing. The other suggestion that's talked about is, does this provide orderly development? And it does. We're providing some needed connector streets. We're developing a land area that was formerly wetlands, but has now been reclaimed. And also, although the tract is 31 acres, it has to be treated as a 15-acre tract and a 16-acre tract because it's bisected by a live creek. So when you look at the development, the 31 acres does not have development potential. It has to be developed in separate tracts. And this developer is willing to undertake working around that particular situation, which is going to require quite a lot of extra engineering and development to be able to build the necessary roads and infrastructure.
Hey, Laura, can I just ask real quick? Is this the bisection right there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right here?
Yes, that dark line.
Yeah.
Should've just lean over. Lots of bullets. There you go.
So although the rezone is 31 acres, there's a creek, Spring Creek runs through the property, but it's all under the same ownership right now. The creek is not owned separately by any drainage entity or a municipal authority. It's still just private property. So working around this is that we're gonna have to develop means of using the two tracts and then crossing that creek with all the necessary infrastructure. The second sheet, or the third sheet, shows a little bit of a rough sketch of the proposed park and how we propose to do it. What we're going to be doing is extending 1750 north to and across the creek, and then building a new through street that connects with Cooney Road. Part of that will also be a new water line that will connect at the end of 1750 west now, extend up to the extension, and then across the new road, and then back down Cooney Road all the way to south of 75 to make a water line loop with 2 points of connection. Additionally, if you look at that same sheet, you'll notice there's a new sanitary sewer lift station that's shown. And that sanitary sewer lift station is gonna be built near the existing KOA lift station and will be designed to accept the sewer waste from all the adjacent buildings and route it back through the existing force main past 75 back into the municipal collection system. So all of those things that are going on are all gonna be done at the developer expense, at no expense to the city. So bottom line, there's only really one thing in order to bring this business here, and there'll be more discussion about the tax base, is that we've got the ability with this developer to take the wetlands and turn it into a park. And the only thing we need from the city of Springville is for the rezoning. The developer will pay at their expense all the infrastructure costs to build the entire park with asking nothing from the city. No tax incentives, because it'll all be under the same ownership. There's no tax incentives, no contribution for utility costs, infrastructure costs. It'll all be paid for 100% by the developer.
When you say there's no taxes, incentives, is this a pretty significant revenue generating
We have a
business?
gentleman that'll talk
That we
about
talked about that, okay.
But the main thing I want to bring about is if we were going to build this development and without the cash resources of the Tuffley Company, and Don failed to mention one thing, is of their 150 properties in 22 states, they're all debt-free. They don't borrow money, so they don't have to partner with a lender. So their decision process of picking the right property or having to work around a live creek, there's no committee looking over their shoulders to do it. It's just a private development, so it's a very good, quick process to decide to do that and spend the money to do it. So the reason I bring up tax incentives is I read through the economic development plan, realized that some developers are gonna come to the city and they're gonna ask for something in return for developing the infrastructure. In this case, they're asking nothing from the city other than rezoning. I'll turn that over. Thank you.
Okay, I can move some copies. Oh, I got two.
I'm not gonna read all this, I'm gonna paraphrase most of it. I don't think we need to go into all of this.
Thank you.
Just make some good points.
Again, thank you for bringing that map up. It makes it a little bit easier. Obviously, the subject property is that 31 acres. We have, obviously, the 1400 North Corridor coming in. I want to first apologize and kind of talk about what has happened in the past with some of the attempts to rezone, because that was a question that you had. We came to the council back in October of 2020 and, not council, excuse me, the committee. And the committee didn't honestly know how to handle the request because there was a lot of discussion of how to vote on it so that we would still be able to take it to city council without any problems and without any detrimental effects, because most of the members felt like they supported this going HC because they just didn't feel that there was a good RC use for it because of the nature of the property. Fast forward a little bit, and we went under contract with Mr. Holman of Overland Construction, or Overland Development, and during our initial discussions with Ken, he was saying that, yeah, I want to do an HC development on this, and of course, he immediately tried to do a residential component on the south side, which we had told him that we had discussed that with the city, and the city didn't have an appetite for it, and there was no sense in trying to take that forward, but he again said, yeah, I'm just gonna try it anyways. So he was proposing an HC development south of the stream, and north of it, he was proposing HC. Well, at the time, the committee looked at it and said, you know what, we really, again, don't have an appetite to do residential in this location, but we would love to see a quality HC development for the site. We think that would really be something good for the city. And you guys encouraged him to bring that development. And we felt that that's what he was going to do. But then he came back in December and had light industrial manufacturing across the top half of the development, which totally blindsided us as the owners. We didn't like that idea. We didn't feel that was good for the health of the program or of the property. And we didn't want that ourselves. We thought that was just no good. He asked for an extension. We told him not a problem. We'll give you the extension as long as you agree to only go for highway commercial on the site and leave the 18 acres on the west as regional commercial. He refused to do that, canceled the contract, and fast forward to now. Okay, that kind of brings you up to speed. We apologize for his, overstep or overreach to try to do that light industrial, but we found out later on from a statement that he made to us that he'd always intended to try to do a storage facility on this piece, which again, we know that you guys don't have an appetite for any more of that in the city. So, there was a couple issues that we brought up or that came up in the staff report, and there was a lot of mention of light industrial manufacturing uses. We're not going after any, and Tuffley doesn't have any current tenants that are interested in this site for that. So it is specifically for highway commercial and highway commercial only. No one's looking for any manufacturing processes on this piece. So,
One question on that.
Mhm.
In this, it mentions heavy equipment rental and sales. But the storage of outdoor trucks and heavy equipment is a light industrial manufacturing.
it's actually allowed also in HC, and this is more inventory than storage. It's the inventory that they sell like a new car lot. Just like new
So
cars,
with that,
except the product's a little bit
They'll
different.
be, because I looked up both the companies that were mentioned in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll be selling this heavy equipment out of there?
Most of their revenue, and Greg's gonna bring that up, he's got the tax documents and everything from them as far as how much sales tax is generated from sales versus rentals. And he breaks it down quite specifically in his handout.
Laura, isn't it another section? Because the storage outdoor trucks and heavy equipment only shows it being permitted in light industrial manufacturing.
That's correct. It is only the storage, the use, storage,
You have that in.
outdoor.
It's not storage, if you go through all the definitions of storage, outdoor storage, storage is something that's there. You rent a spot, park a truck, you leave it there for some indefinite period of time. This is not that way. This is like a dealership, equipment dealership, agricultural dealership, farming. The inventory and merchandise is what's on the yard. It's not stored because it's not there for an indefinite period of time. It's in and out, like a rental company that rents cranes and wheels. Parked there because it's too big to put in a building. And of course, it's in and out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. That's the difference. There's no, when you think about a storage use, where you build buildings and rent that stuff out to store equipment, this is not that type of business at all.
I'd like to ask that if you have comments, please come to the microphone so we can have that recorded on the record a little bit more easily.
My apologies.
No, it's fine. Like, we'd love to have
I
the
knew-
back and
I knew
forth and
Bob
feedback.
had
Just come
read
on.
into that a
So-
lot deeper than I had.
So this would be covered under the equipment sales, heavy equipment and farm equipment? That's what it would be
So
covered
just to
under.
tag on to that question, so what is the primary business here?
Well, okay, Tuffley is a developer that builds these business parks. H&E is one of their primary, and that's the main anchor that we've got
Okay?
specified.
I read about them, yeah.
Yeah. They're specified, they've already committed and said, yes, we want to be on this site. There's actually two others that have also committed to this site as well. But even with just those three, it still leaves about 15 acres remaining that has not been committed out yet. We've still, they're still going to build to suit and lease those properties out to other. So as far as the sales tax revenues from those, we don't know exactly what that's going to be yet, but it's going to add in quite a bit more than what we already have. And of course, Greg has done all the research on that, and he'll be up behind me.
The reason I keep asking these questions, if I remember right, the reason the city council has, sort of been moving away from highway commercial is because we want to make sure that especially our, entrance ways to the cities are more attractive and bring revenue to the city.
Yeah, and
I
we
mean-
can understand that. We totally do, and I'll address that here
Okay.
a little bit. We talk a little bit about, we talked about trying to bring an anchor tenant. It's come up that, we'd like to see a Target here, suggestions of a Walmart. Again, if you look at where the site's located, to the east of it is all industrial. Light industrial is the zoning in there. That's all industrial. You've got the railroad tracks. then you've got Cooney Road,
Yep.
then you have the site, and then, of course, we're leaving the 18 acres on the west because that has actually freeway frontage, and we hope we can actually bring a nice retail use to that, as long as we have enough, tenants in here from the anchors that we bring in to create traffic into the area, because right now, no one even knows it's there. North of it, you have an area that's zoned light industrial manufacturing, but that's actually a UDOT mitigated wetland. It's a dedicated wetland with deed restrictions. We've talked to our wetland consultants, and they've all said the same thing. We've never seen one of those ever come out of a dedicated wetland status. There's no way to get that back. And then, of course, north of that is two pieces that belong to Provo. Those are also mitigated wetlands. They used those when they did some of the expansion of the airport back in the late 80s, early 90s. So everything north of us, all the way to the golf course, is off limits. You can't use it for anything. It'll never develop into anything. So this is completely surrounded by freeway, off-limit land, and then industrial. This HC piece would be a very nice buffer between the industrial and what we would hope to bring in regional commercial along the freeway. Trying to do a regional commercial right next to an industrial and railroad tracks, just the feel's not quite right there. One of the other things we've talked about is 1400 North, if you look at it, and everybody here knows Springville, most of you live here. You come down 1400 North, and it is industrial all the way into town. You've got, I'm just totally.
Little giant ladders.
Yeah,
rolls there.
everything's there. You got Flying J to set things off right off the bat, and then you've got Flowserve, you got Little Giant, you've
Yep.
got,
Yep.
Nestle's.
It's our industrial park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing's industrial all the way
Yeah.
down. To suggest doing a full-on retail center on this site, there's no retail people that are even interested in doing it. There's nothing even close to it as far as residential homes. Our closest development is 1.5 miles straight
Understood.
away. So a mile and a half, plus you'd have to go across railroad tracks to even get there.
Yep.
Everybody in there goes south. It just makes sense. That's where all the shopping is, and it's going to get even better for
Yep.
them with 1600. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of cities develop stuff like this. It's been there for 40 years. So, we're the wrong feel for a retail commercial center there.
Correct.
We've talked to different developers that do like Targets and anchor stores, and all of them say the same thing. There's just nothing that would
Sure.
go there.
Yeah, and again, all this stuff just takes me back to my previous question.
Okay.
This whole conversation, because it's not about whether or not we want to target there, because we know Target would probably never go there, but what kind of revenue will it be generating for the
Okay.
city?
Well, with that being said, I'll step down and let
Okay.
Greg come up, because obviously that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Sure.
You can tell me to shut up, by the way.
Please answer your questions.
Awesome.
Thank you. Just a little bit of background. Last summer, we were in discussions with Tuffley about placing an H&E here, but at that time, they only requested enough property to put the H&E. We had Mr. Holman approach us to offer to take it all, and we had to weigh do we stay in, do we develop this, where do we sit? We made the decision to go with someone who would take it all. And all throughout that process, we stayed in touch with them, especially when things started going in a direction we weren't very happy with. So Tuffley, in response to your question, is their users are large retailers that require outdoor storage because of the size of the things they sell. They are not, if you go open this book, and who's Tuffley, as they explain, there are 150 plus projects throughout the nation. They've been in business for over 40 years. They go to page 3, there's a list of some of their long-term tenants, people who follow them, people who contact them, who know they have a new site coming, and they're interested in setting up shop with them because they've had a long history with them. So the first person to approach them was H&E. H&E Equipment's a large publicly traded company who, in the month of April in the state of Utah, did just shy of $5 million in taxable sales and rentals. They have a small location in the Ogden area, it's just getting started, a medium-sized location in St. George, and quite a large location in Salt Lake. The anticipated revenue on this site here would be somewhere between St. George and Salt Lake. The average would run just about $900,000 a month in sales. Rentals, that only makes up 40% of the business. 60% of the business will be rentals. Springville will only receive sales tax on the portion of the property that's rented and used in Springville. Even with that being said, we expect that the expectation is that they'll do roughly $1.3 to $1.4 million in taxable rentals within the tax district of Springville City. So if you look at this, then we get into property tax.
So is the primary business then rentals?
It's
That's
40
really
40,
the
60.
question.
It's,
60% rentals, 40% sales?
Or the other way.
no, it's 40% sales, 60% rental. And at 40% rent sales, they still expect to do just shy of about between 10 and $11 million per year on this site. And then rentals will be that much more.
Laura, just because I'm ignorant, how does that compare to, say, I'll use Walmart for lack of a
You wanna,
better
you wanna
example.
wait for me?
Yes, I'll wait for you.
Answering that.
Fire away.
So,
Laura, come
I know
on.
the answer.
as you can see down to the bottom, and their direct impact directly to the city, and we got a little more information after this was put together, we're really, really low on the property tax from the rental inventory. Their rental inventory is several times larger than we expected in the state. So that will probably be about double that on property tax just from the rental inventory. And then the next page is another product, another two companies that are anticipating coming to the site that are already doing business with Tuffley. They've just expressed interest. They would like to come here. If you go to the next page, you'll have,
What's the heading on the page you're on?
I should have numbered them. I'm sorry. Just
What's the
You've got
top?
some blue graphs in
Okay,
there.
got it.
Those came from your budget.
So phase one? Is that the title?
Yeah, phase one.
Okay.
And so that's your estimated sales tax, estimated property tax from just these three businesses. So you mentioned, are they gonna be impactful? If you'll go to the next page, it'll show you roughly the estimate of what those businesses are paying. Tuffley alone is going to be in the top 5. Not Tuffley. I do that all the time.
H&E?
Don corrects me. H&E. H&E. The combination of the three, which expected to take about 11 acres, would push them up to about number 4. Any questions?
Are there any questions for the applicant from anyone on the commission? Or do you just need a minute to look through everything?
Yeah.
There's
You're
been
fine.
given a lot of stuff.
Well, in previous meetings, comments were made about end users, sales tax revenue. Mike and I both work as commercial real estate brokers. We have ownership in this project and this and several others. I'm gonna be honest, I've got 5,000 people in my phone. If I don't know who it is, I generally don't like to answer it. We had this property listed, I had to answer every call, and we were called from every state in this country
Yeah.
with people of interest. Most of them wanted to do light industrial manufacturing or housing. And we just shut them, we just, nope, don't even talk to us. So,
I think what we'll do is we'll take a few minutes to look through your materials, and
Totally fine.
then we'll start discussion as a commission, and we may ask you guys to come back up,
Okay,
or we may.
There's additional information here on property tax.
Okay,
The way it lays out, how it compares to other businesses in this community. We realize that the city gets a small portion of it, but, but if any questions we can answer, we'd be glad to try.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Sure, yes, please come to the microphone.
One of the other things we mentioned about the Tuffley Company is, that hasn't been mentioned so far, and a lot has been mentioned about them, they are extremely patient people. Since they don't have a lender, they don't have loan service, they don't have a debt, they have no hurry to build out all 5 or 6 of these tracts. So they have a following of companies, and they know what company will benefit them and will benefit this community. So there may be an H&E and a Super Products and a third, which would take up maybe 3 of the 6 lots, and the lots have to be flexible in size. But there's no haste to fill those other lots up. When the right mix comes along, the right tenant comes along, then a building will be built. The property will be maintained, any vacant lots will be mowed, they'll keep taken care of, but there's no rush. So they may get, I don't want you to get the impression there's gonna be 2 or 3 winners that come in right away that are well-known and well-documented, and then a rush to fill up the other 3. That will not happen. We worked with them for 36 years, starting with Don Curry's granddad. And we built over 550 acres of industrial parks for them in the Houston area, and they are patient. They're in no hurry to fill them up, just to fill them up because they don't sell anything. They're long-term holders. So you don't have to worry about seeing a few good people now and then the rest of it being sold out to people that are not this good. It won't happen.
So is this strictly just a build and lease, or will you build, or will you sell some pieces, parcels
No, there will be
after you develop it?
no sales. It'll all be.
You'll just build and lease back?
I guess I did a poor job describing ourselves. Yeah, so it's a family-owned business and still controlled, with no debt on it, generally significant cash flows. So the trick is parking it. And so everything we buy and hold, we don't like to then sell, because all you're really doing is adding to a cash problem. So everything we develop, and especially this one that's taken more time, we believe in it. Once you're able to get it there really is no incentive for us to sell. If anything, we'd hopefully go find other areas to invest in the community, but very, very reluctant seller, unless we had to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you by chance have tax information? You said you have an Ogden location, a Salt Lake location, and a St. George location. Do you have the tax paid for those locations? This is H&E, right? Is this H&E that you have these facilities?
Surprisingly, they sent me their April tax return for sales tax,
Okay.
the entire thing. I mean, I said, can you just kind of give me a breakdown? And they're based in Louisiana, and they emailed me the entire thing. Showed me every single city. They're going to pay you guys about $1,700 and change for rental equipment for the month of April.
Okay.
And it lists every city, it lists their taxable sales. We took the numbers from what they gave us.
Okay.
And then the reason that I say that the rental inventory that's property taxes assessed against is way low is we were just doing some estimates because they hadn't gotten back to us. They got back to us, and the figure was about 3 times what we expected.
Yeah. Okay. They just sent you this today?
Yeah,
Okay.
quick, but not that quick.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised. I mean, she just came back and said, hey, I'm sorry, this is what this is the total dollar value that we're assessing property tax to in the state of Utah for our rental fleet.
Okay.
And I was a little surprised at the number myself.
All right.
Are you ready for discussion, or are we still looking at materials?
I'm just trying to understand this spreadsheet. I guess I'm not very smart.
Which spreadsheet?
I don't believe him when he says that.
It's inflation.
I know, I know.
Do we have any questions for, to follow up for staff or for the applicant that would aid to our discussion?
Maybe during the discussion, but not at this
Always.
moment.
So,
Okay.
would these include online sales, I wonder? Because, do we get credit for online sales? Do we get do you know, anybody? We do.
Yeah, we
So
do.
like when, I know M&M does, and I noticed they're listed as number 8 here. M&M does a ton of, I mean, I think most of their business is online, right? Do we get the full tax benefit
Sales tax.
of all of their online sales? Okay. So did you take these numbers and extrapolate them from what they sent you?
Publicly traded, so they have SEC filings.
Okay,
And
so that's where you took these numbers from?
between SEC filings and the information they were giving me,
Okay.
and they were very open to provide information.
How long have they been in St. George?
Don't know.
I was noticing, the reason I'm asking the question, I noticed on the map that
It's listed as some other business.
somebody provided, it's just, there's no rectangle in St. George. You can see one in Ogden area,
Oh, no,
Salt
it-
Lake area.
Let me clarify that. Tuffley isn't in St. George, but H&E is.
Yeah, H&E. Oh, so that was just Tuffley.
Yeah, this is just Tuffley's
Got it,
locations.
Yeah.
The one in Salt Lake we own, that one we did buy and still hold, so we own a major site for them in Salt Lake.
Okay.
Ogden is a different landlord, and St. George is a different landlord. We're not their exclusive.
Right. Sorry, one more question. As I'm looking at the spreadsheet that has sales and rental, and the sales are 780,000, the other one's 100,000 for rental. Again, that's just extrapolated from this other piece.
Combination
It's
of
a-
that.
I know it's a 60-40%.
It's a combination of that and what their expectations are.
Okay.
And so, the way rentals are, if you get an opportunity to look at
Yes.
this, they'll actually, you've got almost every zip code in the state on there. So if they rented a piece of equipment to, say, to Spanish Fork, the sales tax towards that rental will actually go to Spanish Fork.
Okay.
The sales will all stay here, and then the rentals that are based here will stay here.
So,
So all sales are here. Rentals are dependent on who rented it from where.
Exactly.
one question here, you've got H&E equipment, you're naming them as one of the occupants, tenants. But then you've got tenant 2 and 3,
2 is listed.
okay, and that is the J
2 is
products
super
or?
products.
Yeah, super products. And is 3 nailed down, or is this just kind of pie in the sky? We think we've got them.
Both the two tenants, the H&E, certainly where this started from. They said, hey, we want to be on that market. Super Products found out we were looking out here and said, hey, we'd really like us out there too. We have, as we mentioned, about 150 tenants. We don't go to them until we're sure this is something that'll happen. So we have not fully explored our portfolio of different tenants.
Okay.
We always want to deliver on what we promise, so we're waiting on that stage.
So it could be any one of these tenants that you've kind of listed here,
Yes.
but you have a pretty good, solid idea that you have no problem in putting somebody there with the value that you've put on here as tenant 3.
That's our expectation. So yeah, that's leading us to, go through the effort to go through this process.
Okay.
We can't ink a deal until, we know we can deliver, and that's always a business
All right,
risk we take. But yes, that is the expectation.
You're confident that you've got a $4 million tenant coming in with annual sales?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reasons why you are asking for a change to highway commercial from regional commercial are so that you can have the equipment sales of heavy equipment and the storage, outdoor storage.
Outdoor storage.
Those are your two.
In the warehousing? Or,
Housing not as
Not as much.
important is, if you'll go back and look at this picture of H&E, they've got large equipment, and they're not going to be putting inside a warehouse. It's going to be outside. If you look at the zoning matrix on the very last page, there's a supplementary
I
use
wanted to
for outdoor
introduce a little bit
storage.
about, that has to do with warehousing. None of the businesses that are in this model, that follows the Tuffley Company around the country, are in the business of warehousing.
okay,
But it's unfair to say there's no warehousing. H&E Equipment has repair parts, accessories, customer consumables. Obviously, they take up storage space, warehouse space in a building,
yeah,
which under building code would be called warehousing. So there has to be a warehousing component for all of these people.
yeah.
Understood, but warehousing is not the primary purpose of this building?
No, absolutely not.
It's
The
the
building-
sales and the outdoor storage.
The only concern
Typically,
you change this and if you're concerned about warehousing, once you change this, you open a door to where they can
Yeah.
put warehousing there,
That's the
if
thing.
that is the case, but,
And also light
I don't think that's
industry,
the intent here at all, by any stretch of the imagination.
yeah, but that's the thing, is
now,
it
light
can be more.
industrial is separate and apart from RC or HC.
No, there's
There is no intent for light industrial
There's a
manufacturing.
conditional use for light industry manufacturing processes that's allowed in highway commercial. So by designating it highway commercial, it does open the property up to the possibility of light industry manufacturing processes. So
But it would
that has to be kept in,
it would require approval.
That's-
yes, but conditional, unless there's an extreme reason why not, they're mostly permitted,
We
so.
don't have much latitude on the approval of
Yeah.
conditional uses.
There would have to be an extreme reason why it wouldn't be allowed. So most conditional uses are permitted, so it is a consideration that we have to keep in mind.
We understand. But we also,
For me.
I think that, I don't want to speak for Don, but I think they would be willing to do a development agreement of types of uses that would or would not be allowable.
We should.
Yes, we would certainly look at that, and I understand the risk of you change a zoning, and that opens up other potential unintended uses there, so.
So as I'm looking at this, for H&E Equipment Services Utah, Inc., this is for April only?
April only.
Okay. And is that sales and rentals, that number?
No,
That,
now let me look at it.
that $1
It's
million?
sales
number?
and purchases, it says.
Sales,
So then, this figure here is combined.
which one?
Is this just one location?
This is just, the Salt Lake location just sells.
So
Okay.
this $5 million one is
It's
the
total
combined?
combined. This is St. George just sells. This Ogden just opened.
So in terms of, if you look at this number, in terms of actual revenue generated by these guys, it's more of a, 20, 28,
These two together, and you're
80.
1.9.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at this number right here, this is the combined, right? It's 2080, right?
There, if you go down
through here and what they look at, they figure it's about 40, 60 with their expenditure.
Yeah, I just want to understand that, if that's their total sales revenue. This is sales and purchases, okay.
It's just make the assumption.
4.4.
4.5, a third of that being 1.5, which is.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
I got, don't worry, I got it on camera. Okay.
Do we need discussion or public hearing first?
We need a public hearing. Yeah.
Now seems like a pretty good time for that. Would someone like to make a motion for a public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
Seconded?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the commission on this item?
Seeing none and hearing none, I move to close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed, and we move to discussion between the commissioners. Who would like to go first?
Can I start down at this end?
Please do.
Okay. I totally support the concept that we have, that Josh and the city council and everyone have come up with, to have the regional, what is it called?
Regional commercial.
Regional commercial. But, you know, as I've stated before, and when this issue came up before, I don't think we're gonna get retail shops in there. That's just not gonna happen. There's no homes in there to support the retail. And personally, I have no problems, you know, we were talking about, Genevieve was talking about, well, they could put in a warehouse in there if they wanted to. And my reaction to that is, you know, I don't know that all of them are, but almost every one of the buildings in our city industrial park are what am I trying to say?
Light manufacturing?
No, they're
Warehousing.
They're warehousing.
Yeah.
I mean, Supernatural is nature, what used to be Nature's Sunshine, which is now the dog food company, what I still call Valtech, but it's, you know, I mean, Little Giant, I mean, you might mention any of them in there.
They all need.
And they're all that.
warehousing for
And
that.
I don't think that's an ugly sight particularly.
I'm not saying it is.
Yeah, and so my point is, I think the concept of wanting to have retail which makes the city look more vibrant and so on and so forth is good, but I don't think it's ever gonna happen here. And personally, you know, I look down through these items that are allowed, and I don't have a serious problem with most of them. Maybe I don't particularly like the concept of a lot of outdoor storage, you know, necessarily, but the type that they're recommending here is fairly attractive, I think. I mean, it catches your eye and it's interesting, at least to some of the guys, you know, to see heavy equipment and things like that. But my point is this: we need to be a vibrant city, and I don't think we're going to get the retail. We're not going to get into competition with Spanish Fork. I mean, they've got 2 Walmarts, and we only have 1. You know, but my point is, I'm totally in favor of letting them rezone this, because I know that property down there well. I used to ride by there every day on my bike when I worked over in Provo as a boy, and I used to go down there and hunt pheasants with my best friend Roland Condi, and he owned part of that property down there, and I just think we'd wait forever to develop this property if we don't allow something like this. So all I'm saying is I'm totally in favor.
So, just a quick comment to that, and this isn't my full statement, but I don't think anybody's saying we have to get a Target in there, we have to get a Walmart, or we have to get this big retail establishment in there. I think right now, the reason the city council's made these decisions, and I might be wrong, is because they want to make sure that we only have a limited amount of land left in this city. There's only a limited amount of land. And we as a city need to ensure that whatever goes in there is going to maximize the revenue to the city. And so I don't think anybody's opposed to figuring out the right business to go there. I think the real thing that we should be discussing is, and I think this is the city council's view, is what's the revenue going to be? And
So
that's really
I
important.
don't-
ask that question though, and let's use your premise. That's a swampy land that you're gonna go past Maverick, Holiday Inn.
Yep.
Liquor store,
KOA.
KOA, and what is it you're gonna put out there to maximize the tax base? That's my
I'm not a
question.
developer, but I mean, off the top of my head, car dealerships, heavy equipment
H&E is
dealerships,
like
whatever.
H&E
Yeah,
is like a car dealership.
I understand that. I'm just trying to make sure that really we're gonna get
I'm not
this revenue.
disagreeing with what
That's
you're
my
saying,
fear.
But my question is this has come before us multiple times.
Yeah.
And we continue to look at it, and we say, okay, what is it that can really go out there? And everybody we're so hung up on this retail situation.
Again, I
that-
don't
no,
think,
No, I just.
we need to stop
just let me
saying retail,
finish.
I think.
But that is the thought process and pattern that's brought up. It'll be a cold day, and you know what, to get retail out
Help.
in that space.
Okay, now, let me, since you were responding to me, let me
Yeah, please.
state something. Number one, I don't have the minutes in front of me right now, but I don't recall when we brought this issue up and authorized the regional commercial, or at least sent it to the city council. I don't remember him saying, well, the reason for this is that we want to maximize the profits from sales and taxes. That wasn't an issue. The issue was that it wanted it to look nice in that area.
And the other issue was to hold back and allow the city to finish the review, the general plan
Yeah.
review.
And is that finished?
No, and it won't be for another 18 months
Okay.
or so, and probably longer. So I'm very familiar with like H&E. I know of another company that has dealerships of probably, I don't know, 25, 30 heavy-duty truck dealerships that are looking for 10 acres here in the city that are sold retail, bringing a massive amount of business that would fit right into this park. So the question is, and they can't find property to build here in Springville.
Right.
They want to come here, but they can't come here because we don't have property zoned where they can build right
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
And so this is massive retail. Let's set aside Spanish Fork. Kmart is now going to, the old Kmart building is going to be the Target building.
Right.
Dillard's isn't, but it's the old Kmart building that will be Target.
Yep.
So if we're going after big box stores, that ship has kind of passed for us a little bit. So now what do we do to maximize our tax base here in the city? So that we're not just this bedroom community, that all we're doing is taxing homeowners for our revenue in the city. And warehousing isn't gonna cut it.
Right.
So we have to figure out a way to maximize that tax base for the city.
This is my point.
And I don't know, that's my only, and that piece of property out there, I don't see it being developed in
But
any
I-
other way
To maximize
to
more profits.
maximize.
I agree. This is my whole point. The question is, do we open up a can that you know, that can't be fixed later.
No, because I
We
think
approve
you
this.
open up the can of 31 acres, and then you allow for the city to finish up its zoning.
Approve it and then let the city finish
No,
its
it
assessment?
wouldn't be approved, it has to go before the city council.
Well, I mean,
Approve
this
make a
section would
recommendation to
You
approve
make a
it
recommendation to change it
Now?
to RC, but there's just 31 acres.
before the review
not-
finishes?
And then the rest of it would be encompassed by the review.
If you were to ask
But
me
this
today,
31
that's
acres
what I
would
would
be
do.
determined that it would be HC.
And you were talking about light manufacturing, some doors this opens here, what,
It does open the possibility of light industry
I'm new,
manufacturing
what is that?
processes.
So what is that, what is your concern there? I'm curious.
Just my concern with that, the possibility of that is, yes, it is across the road there and the tracks and everything, but when you introduce manufacturing processes, then that's a whole nother component of noise and, you know, a different kind of industry that's going on there. And we do have the KOA there. I mean, it's not like permanent residential homes, but
But it kind of is.
it kind of is, you know, people are staying there, and I don't have an issue with warehouses being near that area because that's not the same as, you know, manufacturing processes going on per se, but I don't know with the
I don't know,
outdoor-
let's, if we change this to RC and somebody comes in and requests light manufacturing, we can deny that, can't we?
Not really. The only reason with the conditional
Why can't we?
would be if there was,
If it's conditional, why can't you deny the condition? I don't understand that.
it's the problem with conditional uses.
It's almost like a permitted use, right?
It's like a permitted, except
Is-
there's like, if,
I wish
if
we had the
there
city
was-
attorney here to ask.
Is that,
He's upstairs.
Laura, do you have an opinion on that?
Right, so conditional uses, you basically have to permit them unless you give specific reasons of how you could not allow them. So if you're meaning you would list criteria, if it doesn't meet this, then we don't have to allow it. So our conditional uses are very general, meaning noise, smells, vibrations. Those are really the only things we can hang our hats on to deny something. So use-wise, they can, it's
Is-
pretty much permitted.
like, for example, the concrete crushing situation, is that a light industrial?
That's heavy.
That's a heavy industrial? What are some light industrial uses that we have, other light industrial?
Food manufacturing. So there, you can look at them where they're a higher water user type of thing. For that type of reason, you might not have the water to provide it, you could deny it. But usually it's a permitted use when it comes right down to it.
That's
Unless you have really good
really
don't
good.
codes
think-
codified of why you could deny it.
I don't think light manufacturing is really going to be a huge deterrent to those people living in the KOA. I don't see it. If somebody's boxing up
don't.
food or anything, you're not gonna hear, I don't know that would be an issue. That's just,
There's smells that accompany with, that might not exceed what we could say conditionally they wouldn't be allowed to do. I just, that's my concern. I'm not concerned with the warehousing. I think things need warehousing if they're, you know, if you're selling large things. If you're selling small things, you need warehousing. That's not my concern. It's that C right there. That's my only concern with this
Well,
property, and specifically just because of
again-
the KOA.
can we not do a conditional use permit for these guys and exclude light manufacturing?
That's a good question.
I mean, a development
Or a
agreement.
development
Yeah.
agreement,
Development agreement would be more appropriate.
and you exclude the light manufacturing.
Or any other uses that we,
Hey, Laura, or maybe I should ask any of you guys. Again, I'm the new guy here, so I'm just trying to figure it out. But for highway commercial, would that include like car sales and stuff like that? Is that considered?
Yeah,
highway
car sales
commercial?
are allowed in both the RC and HC
Okay.
zones.
And so the difference here is just the type of equipment.
As far as H&Es, is
Yeah,
that what you're referring
H&E,
to?
yeah.
I think it's the outdoor storage that's getting them. It's our,
But so, let me ask you this question. I mean, a car dealer doesn't park all of his cars inside the building.
no, that's display area.
And so that's what this H&E is display area. It truly is. It's not,
Agreed. I would agree.
you know, you got, all sorts of different equipment that they are just displaying to let
Yeah.
people know, I've got a generator, I've got a lift, I've got this, I've got that. It's all display area. But it's also storage area,
There's both, yep.
because a car dealership is display area, but let's face it, it's storage for those new cars.
Cars, yeah.
Right. Could you reiterate what the concerns were from staff on this particular proposal?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to bring that slide up again, yeah.
I can pull up that slide.
I think
Yeah,
it's,
let's look at the slide.
There's the
The
fact
bullets.
that there is a large amount of commercial
Yeah, let's.
in the rest of
The
the
commercial
city.
equipment or
No, just
highway
the 2 point whatever million square feet of
Coming up,
Yeah,
of properties in the pipeline.
yeah.
and that it's a gateway, it's the northern gateway area.
That's part of it. And our past,
Even though what's there already is, and that's the concern, is what's there already isn't super gateway-ish and they don't want it to get worse.
Was there one more? Okay.
so, I know that we're looking at a general plan redesign and some of these things are going to be addressed in there. What would it take to do just a couple of those elements prior to the general plan revision, and how would that impact the process? If we were to say, look at the design restrictions for highway commercial.
It's a good question for our community development director, who I know is getting started on the general plan, so.
So-
Yeah, I don't have
And-
a good time frame or answer.
There are design controls in regional commercial?
There's not.
There's not in regional either.
So
We have no commercial design controls.
I
So-
come down to a couple of these issues right here. City council, no more industrial flex office warehouse and freeway corridor. This really isn't flex, it's not office warehouse, and it's really not industrial.
But the city council, I think, having had some experience there, I think the city council and
Rod,
Rod, I know that you came back and said that wasn't an issue. It is an issue.
but I ask
They-
you,
they're revenue
this
things,
project,
so-
identify to me or tell me how this project is industrial, how it is a flex piece, and how it is office warehouse.
We have to remember, we're not approving the project.
I know we're not, but
approving
I'm
the
asking you.
zone change.
But that is one of the issues in the zone change.
The zone
asking
change
you-
could include
I'm
warehousing.
asking you
and flex.
how this project that they're proposing identifies with any one of those three pieces.
Again, we're not doing the project, so it doesn't matter if the project does or doesn't.
Well, it does.
The-
That's the heart of the whole thing.
No, the heart of the thing is that it's a zone change, and the zone change does include industrial, light manufacturing, and warehousing.
So that's the stuff that can
the
go
I
in.
understand
concern.
that, but they
That's
are
why
not-
it's a concern on the
They are
list.
not proposing that, and you are giving just 31 acres of a zone change for these guys to develop a piece of property.
They're not proposing a site plan, they're proposing a zone change. So they are
That's a really
proposing
important
those
thing.
things.
What if H&E didn't come in and something else came in?
Well, then you go back, I don't disagree, but then you can go back. You can, before you even approve it, you can make them contingent upon these things.
That would be if we made it contingent, if they did a development agreement. And that's
That's different than.
That's
the zone.
different.
I
than
understand
this zone
exactly what a
change
development
request.
agreement is and everything, but you're still gonna change the zoning. But you're gonna attach a development agreement onto the zoning. And my question is, so what do you wanna do with that piece of property out there as a city? What do we want out there? It's, if you think that's a
This might-
beautiful,
This might be it.
yeah, if you think
this might
that's a
be it.
beautiful gateway to Springville,
Well, the city says there's no rush to develop, so maybe we do nothing. But that doesn't
Yeah.
satisfy people who are
But,
sitting there with
Rob, let me just be
property
clear.
that.
In my opinion, this might be the right thing.
Well, it's been
We-
before
but
us,
the que- and-
it's
and
been
maybe-
before us
maybe
3
the-
or 4 times.
And maybe a development agreement is the right answer. Maybe. But is that a decision that's made here again?
No, that's a decision that's made with the city council.
City council,
Yeah.
right?
But
So if we made a recommendation, do
what
we
is our
make the recommendation saying, well, we recommend this, however, the caveat is,
We can do that.
we would do a
Yes, we can do that.
development agreement?
We can change we can state that we recommend the zone change contingent upon a development agreement,
And that,
excluding,
and that would include the
Yeah.
full 31 acres, the
yes.
as of yet determined tenants.
yeah.
And we can do something.
So if
like
that doesn't come to fruition, the project doesn't happen.
Not only the project doesn't happen, but the zone change doesn't happen. Can we make that part of the contingency? Part
That
of
we'd
this
have to
development
ask the
plan?
city attorney.
You can make it, it's a recommendation, they don't have to take it.
Yeah.
They don't have to
Yeah.
make your recommendation at all.
Well,
But
they,
if this-
they darn sure
Well,
better.
they'll take your recommendation, they don't have to agree with your recommendation, I should say. So you
They
can
have to listen to
recommend
us, but they don't
contingencies,
have
they
to
might like
listen.
contingencies 1 or 2, or none at all, I'm not sure.
I see the mayor in here, and you better take our recommendation, Mayor.
No. Would you like to address the commission on any direction from the council relative to this discussion?
Yeah.
Or would you prefer to watch the show play out? Very unusual.
Well, I appreciate the chance to be able to address, and I had a wonderful discussion with a couple of the people that were involved in it. And I think that the thought process is, it goes to really most of your comments that you've made. And it's this, I don't know, it's a protection to the city to protect the remaining ground that we have for revenue generation. That's really what it is. And whether you do that by a development agreement, or whether you do that by changing the zone, that's the thought process you have to do. The thought, each one of you, for example, Mike, you mentioned, what do you do with this piece of property? Well, that's not for us to say. It's what can we get out of this? Not to be selfish, but that's really why we set up zones. That's why we set up ordinances, is to get it so that it benefits the city. And then you work with developers to try to generate what you can or what you want to accomplish. And if a city says, I want to have a park down there, well, then you work with a developer to get a park. So we've given lots of approvals for property that's on the west side of the freeway, this office warehouse. And I think we've probably done our proportionate share in the state of Utah. And we've given away a lot of frontage to be able to do that, right or wrong, good or bad. But the revenue generation to the city is not high. Now, there are some exceptions, but the majority of those are not benefiting the city from a tax standpoint that you proportionately could. And so that's why you're wanting to be very jealous of what is left in the city, whether it's on 1600 South, whether it's on the west side of the freeway, whether it's on this piece of property or any other. You want to think through, what is it that I can get out for the city from a revenue generation standpoint? So that's the thought process to be able to do that. Now, how you do that and whether you accomplish that, how you accomplish that is going to be the balance that you have to do. You have, and I'm going to speak in general terms with developers, they want to create what is popular, and what they're proposing is a very popular thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. The question is for you as to what is it to protect the city that we possibly can. We talk about Target or Walmart. That's never going to happen down there. But there are other things that you may want to think a little bit about, and that has to do with boat dealers, car dealers, truck dealers. All those kinds of things are always looking for places. And someone's going to say, well, we're able to generate revenue. Well, yes, but tell me what it is per square foot that you actually generate revenue. And you can do a comparison, whether it's with other dealers or Walmart or whatever, to give you a proportionate share to see if that's possible. I'm not an expert at this, but rent or lease payments is not a taxable benefit to the city at all that I know of. I could be wrong, but I don't believe there's anything to do with that. And as these people who have a business in town, who sell outside of Springville, the sales tax revenue goes to wherever the people are that are purchasing it. Amazon, whatever you buy on Amazon comes to us. It doesn't come to wherever Amazon is headquartered at. So you have to think through what services this project is providing and what is possible to get revenues to generate. Is that making sense? So feel free to ask questions. But that's, as you think about this, what are you going to do to protect the city and do it? Couple thoughts just to ponder, and that is that if you do a zone change, you can do a zone change or propose a zone change. But you have to realize that's what's before you tonight is a zone change. It's nothing more than that. And if you approve the zone change, then you open it up with this company or another company to actually do tilt ups or whatever. You're actually doing that. And there are ways that you have to think through in subsequent meetings or whatever of how to, and the city attorney can tell us how to do that, to protect the city against what we're trying to stay away from. So give that some thought as you ponder over this whole thing. And again, it's the revenue generation that you want to do. Property taxes is the last statement. Property taxes does really nothing for the city. Not a lot. I mean, it does a little bit, but it does not go to us. It goes to Neville School District. They make an awful lot off of it. And so lots of these very large warehouses that are on the north end of our city, they think they're doing a wonderful thing for us, and we like them. They're good corporate citizens. But from a revenue standpoint, it doesn't do anything for us in being able to have it done. So,
Just a curiosity, does that include Stouffer's?
yeah, that would include Stouffer's, sure.
'Cause they don't provide a lot of
No.
sales, I mean, they're manufacturing, right?
Yeah, and you made an interesting comment, and you have to think through what happened way back when they set up the industrial park. What were they trying to do? They were trying to create jobs.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to create sales tax revenue. They're trying to create jobs. And when that came, Mike Klauk's here, Ray Klauk, who he's related to. That's why it's called Ray Klauk Way. I was there as Ray was bringing Stouffer's, and we were so excited to have the jobs. Well, times change, things change, and as we get calls in the city that say we want to bring jobs to the city, the thought comes into my head, well, we don't want jobs, because that puts more housing pressure on us. But what we do look for now is sales tax revenue per square foot. That's really what our driving force is. So is that helpful to you?
Yeah, I think that clarifies a little bit the council's
Okay.
position that we're trying to interpret up here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I think that's very helpful because that was never addressed by Josh, when we created the regional council, the regional commercial zones.
So Rod, that's why I say this.
I understand,
This might be it. I
but
don't know.
I just,
And
I have a
think
personal
that's
knowledge of, as the mayor just stated, they want car dealerships and things, of a very popular truck dealership that has been trying for the last 4 months to get into Springville City. And to generate, that fits right into what we're saying here, and they can't find a piece of property.
I think they're the ones that take some.
No, they want to come to Springville. They're waiting patiently.
Is it large truck, so then it would fall under the need for highway commercial?
Could fall under highway commercial, you bet. There's just not a piece of property for them. That's not our problem at hand.
Yeah. Any other?
Yeah.
Yeah, and, my concern part already discussed with the possibility of the industrial, the light industrial but then also the warehousing, because it is also non-generating, if that was to be something that was to possibly come in. But the rental aspect, even if we did like a development agreement that would put it so that it would just be, like if we were to somehow say like warehousing tied to sales, you know, like to a retail sales kind of a thing, then I don't know, the rental being the majority of this specific thing, it only benefits us if they rent to someone in Springville, right?
That's, yeah, but that,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's,
which, yeah, go ahead.
Understood.
In sales for the large equipment, yeah.
So that's just H&E. And then on that situation, you know, like some of these, the Northern Gateway, I'll be honest with you, I'd like to have you guys go out there and drive around and see if you can see this stuff.
I went down there today, so.
Yeah,
It's still RC on the freeway forward.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Northern Gateway, there is no design control either zone, financially neutral.
Now, is that the purpose of the general plan review?
yes.
yeah,
So that's, I think that's a critical
Yeah.
piece for that comment.
yeah, and that aspect of it, like where it is, the fact that there is the buffer with the freeway, and that it is up along Cooney Road where there isn't things across the street from it really because of the way that the railroad is and everything. I think that is a good location for like this heavy equipment sales. I think that is a good location for it.
I don't disagree.
But my concern is how do we make sure that we are not allowing other aspects to
Yeah.
come in?
Mhm.
And
Right. And
Sure. And by the way, I got your comments about Tuffley being a really honorable company, and I believe that 100%.
yes,
but
this is no
That said,
discussion that's a reflection on the company.
we've seen other companies do stuff that ended up, hurting the city.
need you to
Come
come
up-
to
Oh,
the
if you
microphone.
to
can
the
come
mic.
a little closer for us.
Regarding light industrial manufacturing and warehousing, in the simplest economic terms, they can't afford his rent. They're not the kind of businesses that will generate rent that will satisfy these guys, because they're gonna spend a lot of money to build this property, and it has to generate a very good rate of return. And we're in the industrial construction business, and I know what the factories cost, and I know what they're willing to pay, and they won't pay their rent. So it'll have a degree of self-control from a standpoint of the single ownership. Just simply won't allow it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, my concern is what we've based our decisions on in the past, and that being that we know there's the general plan review that's coming on board.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there are specific ideas and ways that we want this to develop that haven't been planned for yet. And I'd like to see us do that planning before we do the developing, rather than trying to take a project and somehow create a mold. It's trying to fit it into this mold that isn't ready for it yet.
Yeah.
That's my only concern, is that we're going about this backwards. But I also don't like waiting another year and a half to
And
address this.
When I asked Josh, if we go back to the meetings, I said, he kept saying a year and a half, but I said, what truly is it? And he agreed that you're looking at more like 2 to 2.5 years for this to be completed.
It's just a little
It
frustrating.
could be, yeah.
So
That's frustrating for the developer, but it's not
Yes.
frustrating.
you take a year and a half or 2.5 years, and again, let's go back to what the mayor said, and let's look at the fact of how much revenue will this generate for
Yeah.
the city
Mhm.
over that next 2.5 years.
And can we,
As
And
long as it
can we
doesn't go
control
towards-
it, or can we issue or offer some sort of a control so that it doesn't turn into what we don't want it to be?
Yeah, the non-revenue generating aspects of highway commercial.
So if we want to be able to do that, we need to have a very clear idea of what it is that we want, what mold we want them to fit into. What's our criteria? What's important to us? What kind of conditions do we need to put in place in order for this to be what it is that we want it to be at the end of this 2-year, planning process?
I think they could do this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the big holdup is that it's being looked as storage for equipment and not as display area for equipment.
No,
Well,
Okay, it's
equipment
not for
sales are
me.
not allowed in the RC either. Oh, I guess we're doing HC, never mind, sorry.
yeah, it's, that's not my concern.
no, it's not my.
No, but that's
The-
one of the issues.
The
What?
issue is that highway commercial could be storage. And that's the issue.
It's bullet point number.
Yeah,
let's
it
see,
could be
3.
industrial flex. And
Currently, no design
Yes.
controls in HC.
And do we have things in
So-
place like proper screening to where it looks really nice, but
Right,
you're still
but-
allowed?
Yeah, because there's no design controls. We don't, though we don't have
Can we
design
n-
controls in
but-
regional either,
Right.
so.
But can we not put design controls on it?
We can, we just need to know what it is that we're looking for. So is it better that we
So
have
is it
maybe a
better that we
planning
have-
meeting?
Maybe we ask these guys to come back with an idea of what it's actually going to be.
Happy to help. This is fascinating listening to this conversation here. When you're saying design controls, are you talking, we'd like to see elevations, we'd like to see fencing, or what exactly are you, when you're getting to on design controls?
It's everything from the elevations to the materials used in the building, to the screening, the landscaping, the different ways that it can be situated on the property, spacing between uses. Everything that impacts how it looks, feels, and sits on the property.
Sure,
Percentage of windows versus, wall.
because even between two different tenants, there will be some variance, right? One will
Yeah.
have a different look to it, so we can.
They have different needs.
And slightly different needs to it, yeah. So if there's we can certainly come back with what the H&E site would look like and give you that feel, or in different cities will have different requirements there as well. Screening's the one that comes up most commonly, right? If you'd like to have a slitted fence or something more formal. So if that's something, we'd be happy to provide, the outlook of what that would look like in our design plans or something like that, at least strong general indication of it that would be finalized later.
So I'm not as caught up in that, though I think it is important. I'm more caught up in the development contract.
Well, these are things
Yeah.
we put into the development contract, and if we don't have something like what we did with the downtown area, where we created a specific zone for that, and we said, these are the design elements that we want, this is how we want this to play out, and I mean, we
Within
could do the
that,
same
we-
thing for Northern Gateway, if we really wanted to.
And within that, we can stipulate no industrial, or no flex, no office, warehouse,
I mean,
to take care of.
is part of the
concern.
issue really that the zone doesn't fit? Do we need to have a different kind of zone that allows, sales of large equipment and heavy equipment and car dealerships, but doesn't allow the strictly warehousing or, light industrial? I mean, what's the-
out that we're
Yeah, what's the possibility of having,
Creating a new zone.
a new zone or amending the zone?
Like we did with what's across from Meadowbrook.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think there's an issue there. We need to have.
The only struggle is.
I mean, because we're trying to
It
fit it
becomes so
into highway
complicated.
commercial because that's
just
the
keep
only other
creating
option.
zones.
We just.
I
yeah.
love this idea, but.
But that, I mean, that's
But we're
kind of
taking-
part of the
we're trying to
discussion of
take
the
a round
general
peg
plan.
and Put it into a square hole.
We are.
Yeah.
If we
And to
want,
your point, are we doing this backwards?
Yeah,
But how long are we gonna wait before we get this recommendation and review of the new zoning laws?
And is there something
realize-
we can do in
Is there something we can do in the meantime to
Right.
bring in something that is, as to the mayor's point, brings revenue to the city?
yeah.
that is substantial revenue and ongoing.
Which is what I mean by needing to have a plan in place so that we know what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. And then we
That's
can
what I
put
heard from
into
you,
place
yeah.
in the development agreement or approve or not approve a project based on, yes, we're meeting this criteria that we've already identified. And honestly, I'm not convinced that we will end up with a different project than what's been proposed. Not necessarily, but I don't think it's fair to the developer and to the landowner if we're ambiguous. If we're not clear on what we want and we're not communicating a very clear set of instructions of this is our goal, this is our vision for the area, and how quickly can we develop that vision?
Great question.
We're in no rush.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
it
'cause
says right there.
I mean, I wouldn't want to, like, create a new zone to fit this project. I would want, the city to maybe look at these zones and then determine, okay, this is what we want to have, you know, revenue generating, sales tax, you know, generating this kind of a zone, and we create that so that that can exist. So it's actually achieving what we want. Cause I don't know that these zones are achieving what we want
And do we
out of the
know what
city.
we want?
That's the thing, I don't know that that hasn't been explored yet, and needs to be.
I think we have a couple of options. One is that, we approve the change tonight, send that to the city council, let them work out based on feedback from us, how this goes forward. Or we deny it, and go with we're gonna wait on the general plan idea that we've done all the previous times that this has come. Or somewhere in the middle of tabling it, holding a couple of work sessions in between, and trying to hammer out what we're trying to do here. Those are the three options that I can see. Does anybody see any other options? Sure.
Continue it or table it,
That was option 3.
allow us to come back with some more information of expectations and what we would be willing to include in the development agreement, such as, you know, what industrial manufacturing will be allowed on the side, some of those other things.
I think that could be part of the process.
I think, my view on this is, I like number 3, because I think there's something here, and I think we should at least have a conversation. But, I hate to just jump out and do something that ends up being a poor decision 20 years from now,
Yeah.
or whenever it happens, so.
And
Yeah, if I had an opinion, I'd love to have a work session on this where we can just hash it out a little bit. And I don't know if we could have Liz Crandall in on that so that she could give, I don't know how that works exactly, give input from the city council or not, but I'd love to hash it out a little. That would be my vote.
What do you think, Genevieve?
I'm in agreement with continuing it so that we can get a better understanding of what it is that we want from that area. And I know that there's keep pushing for, waiting for the general plan, but I think with the number of times that this has come forward and the fact that we've just kind of wholesale changed everything to regional commercial as a holding pattern is a reason to address commercial zoning before, we get into every other aspect of the city, but to address commercial zoning and to actually have a discussion about that now instead of waiting until everything's done in a year and a half,
Yeah.
And I had air quotes on that, because
What's a year and a half?
for the record, a year and a half is in
Half are
air quotes.
The approximate
Because
timeline.
that's not, we don't know exactly how long it'll take.
Right.
You know.
Well, I agree with both of you. I think that a working session and really be able to define what we can do to make this viable for the city along the guidelines that we're trying to do would be more helpful than saying we approve or we disapprove tonight. I don't think we're doing justice to anyone.
Along those lines, I think it would be helpful, or if we sort of summarize the mayor's comments as well, as you talk about developing guidelines. I mean, those are critical bullet points that we would have to take into consideration.
Yeah.
So when we have that work session, we have something solid to look at least.
And then we would have something better to recommend to the city. Not just, we recommend that you do something different, but we recommend
Along with that, if
these
you could just
aspects.
give us a little bit of it, you know, just take the H&E project and just kind of say, this is what we could do.
And what are elements that are important for that project to be successful? We would want to keep those in mind as we're trying to decide what works for the project. We wouldn't want to necessarily be so constrictive in our recommendations that it makes all projects unviable.
Yeah. I mean, because I will be the first to admit, I do not know everything that is involved with the sale or rental of heavy equipment. So, you know, I'm not sure what other aspects of these things you need in order to operate the business.
That said, I look at H&E website, and I don't know this stuff well either, but it really looks like an interesting business to have here if we knew that it would be sales generated.
I
Well, you can go on-
love heavy equipment sales.
Right, so if
I
you
think
want
it's
some
good as a-
comparisons,
That's me.
you can go look at H&E, you can look at Ahern, you can look at,
Yeah.
no,
Super products.
yeah, well, Super Products is totally different, but those are a couple you could look at, even Sunbelt down here in Provo. Those are the type of companies that H&E is, that, you know, that's what they're trying to do. And, you know, there are hundreds of companies across the United States that are doing this, and very viable, and they're part sales and they're part rental. And so, you know, those, to give you a better idea, to give you a flavor of what they're trying to do.
Commissioner Farrer, do you have feedback on the decisions?
You know, I think that if you want to spend more time discussing it, I think it's a good idea. And if the developer wants to spend some time putting together
I like that, too.
development concept, that's a good idea. I'm not just saying that I would like to see something down there, and that we're not gonna get any retail, and so, you know, this is a great idea. I think, you know, my concept is that I've liked what they were presenting, and I'm no expert either on those things, but I am a CPA, so I think I can read through this information and get better feel for it.
Okay. Would you like to continue discussion, or is someone ready with a motion?
I would move to continue this item until a time that we have more information on a development agreement from the applicant and more information from staff on what options we have for moving forward.
I'll second that mouthful.
Yes, that was a novel.
Wordy.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so this item has
Keep this.
been continued, and if the applicant can just be in contact with the city will keep you in the loop on when we're ready to move forward and the steps in between.
Heather, do you
You just see what
need
no,
any part of this?
you'd have to have back, yeah.
Because it was involved in the discussion? Not
We're going to include it in the discussion.
Are we able to hang on to
They can
all of
make
this
copies of
information?
that.
So
Could I introduce
We're
someone?
all-
Could I change
I
hats
just
for a
need to
minute and
make
make
sure
a
she didn't-
suggestion?
we're all closed up.
We can't amend the motion
No,
or
no, no,
decision,
no. This
but
Yeah.
This is a suggestion to the, to
It's a
you
public
as
company, right?
as someone who's worked with numerous
Is that-
zoning commissions.
sure.
Okay.
You have an excellent tool. We availed ourselves of one of the two tools,
Yeah, yeah.
zoning map change. You can also do a zoning text map change.
Oh, wait, we have
Thought
We have
would be-
two different discussions going on, sorry, because we haven't adjourned. I'm not, I'm just saying, it would be confusing.
We're still in session.
We're still in session, so we can't have two conversations going on at the same time.
Right, and we still need to do the microphone until we're adjourned.
The suggestion is there's a zoning map change, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's opportunity for a zoning map change, which is what we're thinking to do, and a zoning text change. Can the zoning text change be brought by anybody, including the commission?
Including the commission or
Okay.
yourself?
That you'd mentioned that there are, and there are in the zoning ordinance and in the potential uses, a lot of conditional uses.
There's some.
There's some,
Yeah.
okay?
Not very many, actually, which is
Okay,
surprising.
but-
We've tried to
We
limit it.
removed a lot of.
Yeah, we
But,
did.
but by a text change, you could add more conditions, or you could clarify or strengthen the ones you do have. So rather than writing, as you suggested, Genevieve, a completely new zone type.
Yeah, and it might
There's a
just be,
mechanism existing today in your system that would allow that to be clarified.
exactly.
And which option we avail ourselves of would have something to do with whether or not we want it to be a global change or a more surgical change and, impact that
Like,
we're
for
seeing.
instance, light industrial allowed in light industrial manufacturing allowed in highway commercial. Well, for that conditional use, write a set of rules. It says, only under these conditions can you put light industrial manufacturing in highway commercial.
So, and that's one of the options that I wanted staff to be able to bring forward to us, and what our possible options are. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there are no further items on the agenda for tonight. Do we have any additional information from staff before we?
Nope.
Okay,
Oh, Mayor?
yeah, please come forward. Oh, that sounds exciting.
Somebody make a move to adjourn really quick.
Art City Days, we get free carnival passes. That's even better. Parade.
No, since I'm here, I just wanted to take the opportunity to say a couple things to each one of you. I hope you recognize the power of your position. Over the 2 years that I was on the city council and had a chance to come visit, there was a time or two where I heard people say, well, that's a tough decision. Let's just pass it on to the city council. And I encourage you never to do that. The city council, and I would never allow, what have we been doing this for, an hour and a half? I would never spend an hour and a half doing what you've done. And so what you're doing and how you're doing what you're doing is incredibly powerful and significant. And you need to recognize the power of what you have sitting in the seats that you do. Brett knows this because he's been on the city council. Your recommendation has tremendous weight. You may say, well, I didn't do what we recommended. That didn't mean we didn't consider what you were doing and recognize the time. But you disservice yourself whenever you just say, oh, well, let's just pass it on. And I'm trying to get each of the committee, or each of the councils, the new PAR, the new utility, the new community, to recognize the power that you as citizens have in this process of making decisions. I think those who are here would recognize that the discussion, as seemingly disjointed and really not sure, I really think the power of how you've come together in thought as to where you're at, I think has been very, very good. And whether I agree or disagree, the simple fact of that process of deliberation and conversation is part of the government that we belong to, and the power of what you do and how you do what you do is so significant. And I just want you to know how much I personally appreciate it. And second is that the power of what you do is recognized by the city council. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you so much for your time and everything. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay,
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second that?
all in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. So I know